Hello there, my friends, and welcome back. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about military spending in my country, the United States of America, and how many benefits that money could have to the general public, or to fix roads, bridges, ending the homeless crisis, or fixing some of these Superfund sites that have been destroyed, many of them by the very military that we spend our extra dollars promoting, defending. And to this day, we have recruiters entering our kids' high schools and trying to convince them that when they turn 18, they should come join the army, go off to some place that they don't even know anything about, and defend their land because they are told to do so. This is a very touchy subject for a lot of people, especially those who have military service members in their family, which I have. My father and his father. My father was in Vietnam. My grandpas were both in World War II. And until you've gone off to war, you don't realize that most of these wars are created by white collared people sitting in offices that have policies that they want to benefit their people. In other words, it is as simple as somebody deciding that they want the resources or the land of another group of people, or just the strategic place. This is something that's often left out. It's not always about resources or taking from others, but under the guise of stopping communism, we've gone in and destroyed many countries that want to nationalize their products or their oil, countries that otherwise would never have been ravaged, which would never have descended into the chaos that they did if the United States military had not gone in using our tax dollars as Americans and destroying another group of people and their way of government because we don't like it or because we deem it a threat. Now, I could go on for hours about this, and I'm not going to, and I'm going to try to stay on topic here, specifically about military spending. And I realize, of course, there are wars going on around the world right now. This isn't just brought on by what's going on in the Middle East, although signing this $105 billion bill recently, as Biden wanted to, and that's aid that's supposed to go between Ukraine and Israel. $105 billion just seems to be like something people scoff at now. Oh, well, it's a lot of money, but it's the military. I don't think people comprehend the amount of money that this really is. I wanted to do a little digging to figure out how much it would cost to fix all of the bridges in the US. Now, I was going to write down all the numbers and share them with you, but they're honestly, the disparity could be vast. You've got some people, it's like 126 billion, all the way up to 400 billion. But let's just say the one that I found that seemed the most, the most dependable was about $312 billion to fix all of the bridges in the US. That means 36,000 bridges that need to be replaced, 100 something thousand that need to be severely repaired. So I wanted to go a little further and say, how about fixing all of the infrastructure in this country? It is under $1 trillion. Now, when you hear the word trillion, it's hard because a lot of people understand how these numbers get magnified over time. Once you get to 1,000 and then you go to 1,000,000, it's 8,000 thousands to make 1,000,000, and then 8,000 millions to make 1,000,000,000. Therefore, it's 1,000,000 thousands to make 1,000,000,000,000. The money is just too hard to comprehend at that point. And it's just money. It's an idea, of course, whether it's paper or digital. The point is that that money is on record as having value. So if you put this money into weapons and you send it overseas, it's not just a matter of sending Americans' taxes over to other countries to kill people, because there are bombs dropped with my name on them. Because as a taxpayer, I went to work. Some of the money came out of my check. It went to the military. They sent the bombs over, and they were used on people. I understand that often, they're just used to defend land or protect against invaders. But this, in the 21st century, this is just completely bullshit. And I think we all know it. That most of the wars that are being fought are not legitimate wars. Gotta let the dog out, because she won't use the damn dog door. Such a nuisance, so unprofessional to leave a podcast to let the dog out. But as an American citizen, you know, with my husky and my family and my American lifestyle, right? And I'm not a commercialized American. I don't go out and buy a bunch of shit. I don't wave the flag just because I think that this country is better. I wave my flag or hang it out because I am proud of my fellow Americans for the things they've achieved and accomplished. I'm honored by my ancestors and the way that they allowed people to start thinking for themselves, and you know, this kind of age of American enlightenment where at one time we were vulnerable. We needed protection. We needed to be able to protect ourselves because there were forces that wanted to kick our asses. You know, in the early days when Britain had their issues, you know, the whole idea was for us to break away from that monarchy. And we now spend as much money on our military as the next 10 countries combined. That includes China and Russia. I believe we spend 10 times more than Russia alone on our military. And consistently Americans are told we need bigger, we need better, we need to upgrade. A lot of the recent programs like the F-35, Joint Strike Fighters, they had to make 3 different versions because one's for the Marines, one's for the Navy, one's for the Army. Oh God, the cost of these things is just astounding. They ended up, the whole program was $1.7 trillion. But this aircraft carrier that they've been working on, 300 something billion dollars, it's been like through, I think, 5 different presidencies. This has been like in the works for decades, and now they've been building it for 5 years. And they've had all these new upgrades and new, you know, advancements in technology, but they put too many in. So the cost to repair these things or to retrofit them or to change them when a mistake is made or something doesn't work is outrageous. And the contractors are the ones that are at the bottom of all of this. Those who get paid, Lockheed Martin, you know, I think even Boeing and several other companies that make weaponry, armor, and vehicles, you know, jets for the military. Of course, this is their bread and butter, is war. And we're not talking about just building a car here. We're talking building a piece of war machinery. Just outfitting a soldier can be like thousands of dollars just for the basic gear. So you're talking, you know, the more foot soldiers you have, the more tanks you have, the more ammunition you can send over to another country, the more you have to make to replenish your stockpile. So as US bombs are dropping right now on innocent civilians around the world, I'm sure, it's hard for me not to speak out and have an issue with it. And I do. But not just because the first issue is humanitarian for me. I don't believe people need to die in the 21st century. I think we can solve many of our problems without warfare. There are wars that we don't know how to deal with, that, like what's going on in Ukraine. You know, the US should not get involved, or should it? And that's something for other people to decide, not me. But as far as us giving weaponry to other people, is there a legitimate time for that? Is that okay? Like, as an American citizen, if innocent civilians were being slaughtered, and I knew that giving them weapons would save those civilians, I'd probably be up for it. But how do I know the underlying details? How do I know what's really going on down there? How do I know if I have a legitimate understanding of what's actually happening in those regions? And it is difficult. It is difficult. Israel, on the other hand, they are a superpower in the Middle East that is a nuclear power that has very much more advanced technology than anyone around them. And I would support cutting off completely all weaponry to Israel, because they have shown themselves to be belligerent, and the government, rather, The extremely right-wing Netanyahu government has shown itself to have the desire to completely destroy the upcoming generations. And this is where I get to the main point here. Killing civilians isn't just a side effect, it's the goal right now over there. Killing children, killing women, bombing innocent people under the guise of war. The reason is they want to stamp out any possibility of a future attack like happened in Israel again. The sad fact, and all of us know this, is that this will not be the solution to it. This is a drunken bar brawl where somebody wants revenge because somebody, beat up his brother. The fact that I'm not belittling what happened in Israel. I'm saying that the response is only going to plant more seeds in more people's brains that they are the corrupt superpower that others have made them out to be. You see, sitting back and watching these things unfold, it's hard not to want to understand it and think you have an opinion. A good example would be if the Westerners dare support Russia. They are consistently attacked, which is understandable, but this was something that came to light in this current war. The fact that there is a severe double standard. And as I heard this one ex-military guy, and he was saying that, and this is coming from a lot of Jews too, so, it's not the Jewish people. This is very important to distinguish the Jewish people from Israel as a state, and also the right-wing government that runs it right now. But most people do not support what's going on. And the government there doesn't care because their idea is this is how we're going to solve the problem. Looking at this through the lens of what we have with modern warfare, I thought back to a time when, in order for you to conquer a people, you had to show up on their doorstep with a sword in hand, go into their home and kill them. That was the option. You couldn't just lob a missile. Today's wars are very cowardly, and it's getting worse because of drone warfare. It doesn't minimize the effect it has on the person operating the drone, but it's a very sketchy future of automated warfare. And I see AI and self-operating drones. That's a completely different story, but that's something I think people should really consider. I think everybody needs to partake in speaking out against war, all forms of war, that we've been conditioned since we were kids to accept that it's just part of life. And it doesn't have to be. Some people will say that war is inevitable. I believe they're wrong. Some people will also say that, that wars are justified, and I would disagree with that as well. Studying the history of war, even a lot of wars were really just revenge from a previous war. I thought about the Hatfields and McCoys. I thought about doing a little bit of research on that before I made this video, because make sure that I had the story right. But families, long histories of family quarrels. When two people finally look at each other and look each other in the eye and say, "Wait, we're both fucking humans here. What are we doing?" You can bypass generations of chaos. But if you go up and you slap the guy you've never met, assuming, well, because you're related to this guy, you must be part of the problem, that's just ignorance. And I feel like that's what our military has consistently done. The US government has allowed genocide to take place without taking any action, yet at the same time going in and sending in US soldiers to create the conditions for future generations to absolutely hate the United States. It wasn't until long after 9/11 when Americans finally learned that Osama bin Laden was taught by the CIA, that he was trained in many of his tactics by our own military. And the more you dig into that, the more you find, well, shit, a lot of people were. And then my son, he's 14-year-old son, he's a freshman in high school. He got to pick what he wanted to do his topic in class for, and he did MK Ultra. Uh, and it's a great topic. I love it. But this is something our government has been doing for a long time, and the CIA is not separate from the military any more than, let's just say, when I talk about the U.S. spending $753 billion last year, on the military, that does not include black ops projects and budgets or diverted funds, which the estimates, they're just estimates, are over $1 trillion. So there's at least another $200-300 billion being siphoned away for various projects we don't even understand. And considering what's been declassified about what the U.S. military has done to test on its own citizens, its own soldiers, would you hold it past them to continue these practices? I think people should really be aware of this, It's like I tell my kids, no, I'm not going to support them joining the military. I think it's a foolish endeavor. That's not to demean anybody who has, nor the soldiers who are out there fighting, and some of them for legitimate reasons. But honestly, I think we could use a lot more of that energy at home. And if the subcontractors weren't ripping people off, as one example I found, they were charging $70 for an eye pin, which just a little metal pin, which cost about a nickel to manufacture. Everyone's heard about how hospitals charge $50 for a Band-Aid, these kinds of things. The military will spend whatever the contractors charge. And the problem often is overcharging. If there was an oversight committee that really gave a damn, then this $753 billion would probably be more like 200. But still, to know you're spending 10 times more than the next, spending more than the next 10 countries combined, that is absolutely absurd to me. And I'm embarrassed as a U.S. citizen. I know we can do better. And even the most military supporting experts say we could protect ourselves with much less. The likelihood of a ground invasion in the U.S. is minimal. The fact that most U.S. citizens are armed, that does help on that front. If missiles start flying, nothing's going to stop that, and there's no solution. It will just be all-out warfare. So as long as we have our shores protected, let's focus on fixing the infrastructure and getting our country back to where it should be. Because damn it, I'd be a much more proud American if we were actually setting up for the future to show that we really do care about the future, the climate, the kids, the problems that we're going to be facing without arguing about petty politics. But those are just my thoughts. Thanks for listening. I appreciate your time. You can find me on YouTube at Carpo719 or the podcast version at 15-Minute Free Thinking. You can also find some extras I have on Patreon if you'd like to support the channel. And beyond that, I wish you all well, and don't buy into the hype. It's not warfare. It's the warfare for our attention. And no child should ever have to die just because some government is angry at another government. Peace out.